Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Carolyn. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you do those, you should be getting a sticker from us.
Yay, we love our stickers.
We have some stickers already out in the mail this week, but there are still some available. So if you would like a Women's Sports Weekly podcast sticker, they're very cute, very tiny. You can put them on your water bottle, on your cooler. You can throw them in a bathroom. You can, give it to your favorite drag queen this month. All you need to do is follow us on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Rate us on Spotify and Apple. You don't need to write a review on Apple. You just need to rate us on Spotify or Apple or both. If you're feeling real frisky, we would love that as well. And then you can send us a DM of your rating. Hopefully it's a 5-star rating, and we will send you a sticker. It's as simple as that. We'll do it as long as we have stickers, which we still have a few more. So please feel free to get your Women's Sports Weekly sticker.
Would also like to shout out all the fathers out there. Happy Father's Day. Shout out to my dad. I wouldn't have played all the sports I played without him. He made a lot of that possible and just very grateful. So happy Father's Day, Dad.
He's getting in some golf swings on his Father's
Yes,
Day.
the man loves his golf.
Yes, happy Father's Day to those who are celebrating, who have a dad present in their life, who don't have a dad present in their life. And this may be a difficult day or week for them. My dad passed away 2 years ago. And this Father's Day, I feel more, okay, this is a celebration, and feel like more like it's not about me, where in the past it has felt like very much, oh my gosh, I have this loss of my dad today. But this year I feel more like, yeah, it's Father's Day, and it's a great way to celebrate my dad and think about him. And I wish he was here, and he's not. And that's okay too. Like, it's just kind of part of this process.
I like the way thinking about it as a celebration and knowing it's still very difficult.
Yeah. And get to celebrate your dad and my brother and my brother-in-law. It's just
Our
it's
brother-in-law.
Nice. Yeah. My family
love
loves
to do that. You do that.
I like to call the house that we live in my house, even though it's very much
really
our house.
Gets to me.
My brother-in-law, not Danielle's brother-in-law, my brother-in-law.
But with that, huge happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Yes. Happy Father's
And we are
Day.
recording on Father's Day. And by the
Yes.
time this releases, it will have passed. But hopefully everyone had a good one.
We also have 2 big things coming up today. And by 2 big things, I mean 2 games for our softball league that we play in.
Yes. And back in New Jersey, we met playing in a softball league. When we moved out to Denver, we were like, we have to find another league because we had so much fun. Just love our team. So I'm excited for our games today.
I have my Barbies jersey on.
Love
we are
it.
the Barbies, which is an interesting team name, but we were the Barbies before Barbie made a comeback. We also play in a league that is predominantly gay league. It is known as a gay league, which we didn't have back in New Jersey. And it is so much fun to be in community with a bunch of queer people, especially during Pride Month, but every month that we get to play with the Barbies. How seriously would you say that you take the games that we play?
I'm a pretty competitive person. So
Yeah.
I'm not taking it seriously to the point where I'm getting angry, but I get mad at myself when I don't play well, and I'm just in general competitive and I want to win. I would say somewhere in the middle, not as competitive as I was back in the day. What about you?
Give it a 1 to 10.
7?
A 7.
Is that fair?
Yeah. I would say I thought you were going to say 5. And I was like, come on, Danielle.
No.
You're a little bit more competitive than that. I don't care if we win or lose. I would love to win every game. I do care that I perform well for the team. I mean, I don't care if we win or lose in the sense that I'm not going to be mad or upset at other people.
No, I don't get upset at other people, but I am pissed when we lose.
Okay.
I hate losing.
I more have an issue with umpires more than anything.
Yeah.
I like to yell at the other team. So we play in a slow pitch league, and sometimes the teams we play against are looking to walk. They're looking to take a base, and I have such an issue with that. Why are you playing in a rec softball league if you are not trying to hit the ball? Please tell me that.
They want the best pitch. They're waiting for their perfect pitch.
No. It feels like they are out to get me.
Well, I think you need to go to therapy for that one, because I don't think that is the case. You're not even the pitcher, so that's a whole other level of
I'm
messed
all
up.
the way in the outfield, and I just scream boring
Yeah,
boring.
you should go talk to someone about that.
It is so much fun. I rarely lose my cool unless people are really intentionally trying to walk every time they come up to bat, because I do find that boring. I want to field every ball. I would like every ball to come to me so that I can kind of move around and do things. And when they walk, the ball doesn't come to me. I'm all the way in the outfield, you know?
But hopefully we get 2 wins under our belt today. I was bummed I had to miss last weekend, so I'm happy to be back this weekend to play.
Why'd you miss last weekend?
First of all, I'm very happy to be back home. Missed you so much this past week. I was away for a work trip almost a full week, and I am exhausted. It was great. Everything went well, but I am so tired. So playing in the heat today is going to be interesting.
I understand why you have to go on work trips, and I'm very happy that you have a job. And it's not my favorite to be home alone for a week. And there's parts of it that I do like I get to watch my show Outlander by myself, and I don't get little comments that are like, I don't want to watch this show and let's watch something else. Like that I enjoy.
Yeah.
However, that only lasts for like 3 hours. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, where's my best friend and my wife? I'm lonely. So I'm happy to have you back as well.
Yes. I hate missing games. And then next weekend, we don't have games because it's Pride weekend. And given it's a gay softball league, I love June. It's just a great month.
So instead of playing softball, we will be hanging with drag queens. That's kind of been our theme.
Cannot wait. We did drag show last night, and that was so... Every time I go to a drag show, I'm like, I need to go to more of these. They are just so much fun.
I know. I wonder if any drag queens listen to our podcast. That would be the best listen for me. If a drag queen was like, I listen to your podcast. You should have
given them our stickers last night.
No, I know, but I know. The drag show is about the drag queens. There for. They are not about us promoting our podcast, and I totally respect that. It would just be such an honor.
Not for them to promote, but maybe they'd be interested in listening. But I know that wasn't what
they're
it was
working.
About.
I'm not going to try to promote myself to them.
But shout out to my favorite brewery, and I think your favorite brewery,
for sure.
Cerebral Brewing in Denver, had hosted the drag show last night. I just love this city. I love Denver. I love how queer friendly it is, and so many places around the city throughout June have pride flags, whether they're a gay bar or most of them aren't, and they just have pride flags. Like we went to a brewery a few weeks ago, and it's just downtown, and it's not a gay bar at all, and just is covered in pride flags. And it just makes me feel, I've talked about safety in the past with pride and just the inclusive environment. It's very nice to be surrounded by.
The drag queen was just so funny last night.
So good. They were both really funny.
We should call her out. Talia Tucker is her name. And
Talia _ Tucker.
You can follow her. We'll promote her. She went up to a table and it was a bunch of queer women. It's just so funny because this is so Denver. She said, point to the person at the table with the most interesting tattoo, because every gay girl in Denver is filled with
all
tattoos.
These people have so many tattoos in here.
That was just really, really making me laugh.
And I loved when they kicked it off and there were kids around and parents had their kids in there and everyone was so happy. But the drag queens were very, very upfront from the start, and they were like, kids are okay here, but our jokes are very much going to be 21 plus. So you have to make the decision now if you want your kids around for that. And I will not share the joke that they said right to start, but I just saw a mom take her kid and she went right out of the room, and she was smiling, but she was like, oh, that's what you mean by 21 plus. Got it. So yes, I wouldn't say that was a kid-friendly environment due to the jokes that were being held. But I did love seeing families there to start and just like be able to see the drag queens and be around, and the parents, straight, queer, like there were all types of people there. And I just love to see everyone come together and just celebrate.
Denver's a great place to be if you're a queer person. Let's get into some sports.
So what is your highlight for the week this week?
I would like to talk about the NWSL, National Women's Soccer League. The KC Current played the Chicago Red Stars last Friday, and they tied 2-2. They played this game at CPKC Stadium, which is in Kansas City. If you live in that area, I am so jealous. It looks so fun. The stadium was built, and it was the first stadium ever built specifically for a women's sport.
And shout out to Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback for Kansas City Chiefs, because his wife played soccer, Brittany Mahomes. The two of them are co-owners of it and built that stadium. Yep. But Patrick is very much involved in it. So that's what I mean. When we think about men supporting women's sports, that's a great example of that.
Give us your money.
But sorry, go ahead.
It's just a beautiful stadium. It's right along the river or the water.
Yep.
The colorways that they use, which is this teal color and the red
their
color.
colors.
It's all over the stadium. They have the teal man there. They have really, really good chants. If I lived in Kansas City, which unfortunately, well, I just have no interest to live in Kansas City. Sorry, Kansas City.
We could visit Carrie and go to a game with her.
Yes, we could visit a dear friend who I love. But
sorry, Carrie. Carolyn's shitting on your city.
I've heard the food is great there. However, the weather stinks. Okay, this is me talking very nicely about Kansas City. Let me get back on track. CPKC Stadium looks amazing. I'm jealous if you live nearby. The KC Current, it's a really good example of if you build it, they will come. If you build a stadium near the city center, if you provide really great accommodations, people will come and they have a really great fan base. And in turn, the team is doing so well. As of when we're recording, they are unbeaten. They've got a few ties, which they tied Chicago. It's a perfect example that if you build it, they will come.
Now we have to knock on wood because Carolyn probably just jinxed the Current. Sorry, Current.
Mal Swanson, who plays for the Chicago Red Stars, scored in the 9th minute of the game. The angle for her goal was just crazy for her to score. It was such a great goal. So Chicago's up 1-0. As a reminder, Chicago's coming off a pretty upsetting loss at Wrigley Field from last week.
Oof, it was pouring.
It was pouring, but they
that
still
brutal.
Highest recorded attendance, over 35,000 people there. A win for them in the sense that there were so many people. A loss for them in the sense that they didn't win the game. And they're coming into this game. They scored in the 9th minute. But then Bia from the KC Current, who just goes by Bia because she's Brazilian, and that's what Brazilians do, she comes around and scores in the 51st minute. So now it's 1-1. Both Mal Swanson's goal and Bia's goal were insane. But Bia's goal, I don't know how the shot went in. Her body was essentially facing away from the goal, and she didn't bicycle kick it, but she did somehow kick it. She twisted her body midair and kicked it back and got it into the goal. I'm still questioning how it was possible. It was beautiful. Bia also has like the straightest, whitest teeth.
I'll have to check that out.
Fun fact. Then in the 58th minute, Kansas City scores again. Temwa Chawinga, scoring machine, sends it into the back of the goal. So it's 2-1 Kansas City. And I'm like, this is what Kansas City does. They score. Kansas City, it looks like they have jetpacks. Have you ever played Mario Kart?
Yes.
People are going to make fun of me and say it's Mario Kart, but I say Mario
I say
Kart.
Mario. No, I say Mario. Yeah, that is weird. I say Mario.
Mario Kart. I'm sticking with it. It looks like they have Mario Kart speed boosts. Like they just kind of punch forward. There's Kansas City. They're coming down and then they get like their little Mario Kart speed boost and they're just gone and they score. It's very cool. However, Kansas City does not have those same speed boosts when they're defending. They get scored on quite a bit. In the 90th minute of this game, Sam Staub on the Chicago Stars heads this beautiful ball in and ties it up for the Chicago Red Stars. They end 2-2. They end in a draw. Kansas City was definitely upset and Chicago was definitely like, yes, we're on the road here. We got the draw. We got some points. Good for us. And Kansas City was definitely like, we had this game and we lost it in the 90th minute. Kansas City, like I mentioned, has not lost a game. They're 8-0-5.
That is a lot of ties.
Lots of ties. And
wow.
if they can get their defense sorted out, like they are going to
like,
score their
scoring.
goals.
It's just they need to stop letting so many in.
And then the Red Stars, they actually are doing better on the road. And there has been a lot of discussion where the Chicago Red Stars play is a little bit outside Chicago. I think they're struggling a bit with attendance. This chance to play at Wrigley Field was really hey, we draw people when we're playing in a good spot. They played in the center of Chicago and got 35,000 people to come. And they've also had this unfortunate thing in a game coming up that they're going to get moved because some kind of punk festival got moved into where they play. So it's like, give the Chicago Red Stars a place to play and people will come.
Yeah.
What do you have this week for us?
2 quick things. One, I mentioned I was on a work trip. And one thing I want to highlight about that trip is during these trips, it's not 9 to 5. I didn't really get to watch any sports this past week. But the one night when I was at dinner, it was at a sports bar on the property. On 2 of the TVs in there, they had the WNBA game playing. That was a highlight just to see it. No one prompted, just on one of the TVs. And the second thing is, more than ever, people that I work with were talking about women's sports, had opinions and knew people's names. And it's just the most that I've ever heard people talk about women's sports, just like unprompted.
Do you think it's because they know you do a podcast, or do you think it's like this
So
is
some
just
of
part
it
of the
was,
zeitgeist
some
now?
of it was they were asking about it, which is very nice. But some people in the room did not know, and I heard side conversations happening about the WNBA and Caitlin Clark and all this stuff. We're just in a different era.
Everyone watches women's sports.
Yes,
It's so
but-
interesting because now people who know that we have a podcast, that's what they want to talk about. And I'm so happy to talk about it all the time.
And it's just bringing more awareness. Definitely want to highlight that. The other thing I have is kind of a low light, but did want to bring light to the PWHL. So as a reminder, the Minnesota team won the championship a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And shortly after that, the league had their draft. The Minnesota team in the 9th overall pick drafted USA forward Britta Curl. After this was announced, immediately there was some conversations online about this pick. In the past, Curl had liked posts on X, formerly known as Twitter, targeting...
We could just call it Twitter. Like, what the heck is X?
I don't know. But targeting the LGBTQIA plus community, especially towards transgender individuals. Also showed support for Kyle Rittenhouse, who, as a reminder, shot 3
Yikes.
unarmed people during the 2020 Black Lives Matter protest. Again, this is just really unfortunate that you have female athletes with a platform that are doing this.
The people who are watching the PWHL, there are so many queer people watching
and on the
and supporting
teams.
and on the teams and buying season tickets. It's just, it just drives me crazy.
Some people asked the coach how he handled the pick. Has he spoken to any LGBTQIA plus individuals beforehand? And this is where it gets tricky, because at the end of the day, you are trying to run a business, right? You are picking the best players. And
But is this good for business?
Probably not. But he basically said he didn't talk to anyone before, but he wasn't extremely straightforward about it.
He wasn't expecting that question.
I don't think so.
I don't think he had any idea that he might get some
I think
flack.
he was thrown off by
Yes.
the question. Basically, what he said is he's trying to pick individuals with the most talent, and that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. I agree that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Free speech, that is the U.S., and that is what
I
we
think it's
appreciate
great.
on
Yep.
so many levels.
And I
What
honestly
don't
think, even if your opinion is not one that I agree with, even if you're spreading hate, I think you should be able to say it, but also you should be ready for the repercussions for that. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, but what I don't agree with is, why are we spreading hate towards these communities, people who already have so much hate coming at them, and now
Yes.
you're liking posts about the transgender community
The black
or
community.
the black community,
Yep.
and you're liking these posts targeting these individuals, and it's like, what are you doing? You are in a league with a lot of queer players,
Yep.
and it's just disheartening that there's still young people in that generation acting like that, because I like to think that as we move through and different generations come up, it is more accepting, and I think it is across the board.
And
But
she's
you
24
still
years
have
old.
a lot of hate. We talked about Corbin Albert from the USA team multiple times, and similar to that, what I will say is I hope the team can take her in, and I hope Britta Curl, can be open and curious to learn more about why it's harmful that what she's doing.
Yeah. So when we're looking at players, like, are we just looking at talent, or are we looking at how they would mesh and gel within a locker room?
You would think,
Yeah.
because a cancer, all it takes is one person
cancer.
to bring down a team.
Yep. And we've both been on teams where there is that
Oh,
one
yeah.
person. You can have the best team in the world. If there
Yep.
is one person on the team who we call a cancer,
Yep.
but because we call it a cancer because cancer spreads, right? All it takes is one person with a bad attitude, and it can bring people down. It brings everyone down. It brings even your best players down, because now they have to deal with the cancer rather than dealing with improving their game. I know that when I was in college, we had a whole talk about social media. My coach at the time said, you can have social media. In order to have social media, you need to be friends with me. And I was like, that's a great rule, because I went through, I scrubbed my entire Twitter, I scrubbed my entire Facebook, anything that I didn't want my coach to see.
Yeah.
I removed it. We need to do a better job of preparing our younger players who are going to be on a public platform, that everything you like is going to be tracked down. People are going to know it. Everything that you support, even if you don't post it to your story, if you like it, if you post a comment in support, everyone's going to know about it, and you need to be careful, or don't be careful and deal with the repercussions of that, because you have your free speech. I encourage you to say your opinions, even if I don't agree with those opinions, even if those opinions are hateful, but don't be surprised when there's repercussions from that.
I think it's like exactly that. Social media has drastically changed everything in our world, but to me it's bigger than that. It's, can we call these people in? Why are you so against this? Why are you open to spreading hate towards these individuals who just need love? I'm not saying I've never judged someone. I've been very judgmental towards people, and I'm still learning to be less judgy and be more open. And this might sound funny, but I always think back to the quote from Ted Lasso when he won in that darts game. And he said, if you would have just been curious and asked me some questions, you would have known that I grew up going to the bar with my dad and got really good at darts. And my point is, I always think about that, because I'm like, even if I feel a slight tinge of judgment from me towards someone else, I think, are you being curious? Are you learning more about this person? Are you being open? There's a ton of different reasons people are judgmental. It's that fear. It's not knowing. It's, what are people going to think of me if I say this is okay? Is that going to make me look a type of way? And I think a lot of it does come from that. So I just hope that more people can be curious and open and accepting and just realize we all want to be loved.
To me, if you are being very hateful towards a certain group, it tells me a lot about you. It tells me that you probably hate yourself in some way. And in that way, I'm able to have some compassion and empathy, because if you need to go out of your way to hate on a specific group of people who have done nothing to you, then that tells me a lot about how you feel about yourself. Not only do you need to do some work with the groups around you, but you probably have to do a lot of internal work with yourself.
And I can say that about myself. The times where I feel more judgy towards someone,
for sure,
it's something I'm self-conscious about, and it's just easy for me to pin it on someone else, which is not right, but it's something I constantly am aware of, and I think we all do it. But
I love that, Danielle, that you said that when you feel a judgment coming on, you get curious. I think that's like, well,
thanks, Ted Lasso.
I know,
shout out.
But that's like a
it
good
sticks
little
with
trick.
Me.
I'm gonna steal that.
It's constantly on my mind. Now with that, let's get into the deep dive.
Yes, this deep dive actually came out as a request from a listener. So a listener asked us to do a little bit more of a deep dive into women's soccer, into the national teams that are fighting for better treatment. In this podcast, we mostly focus on U.S. sports, and we do that on purpose because we don't want to get too broad. And the Olympics are around the corner. I think it would be nice to highlight some of the teams who are not only going to the Olympics, but also fighting for more equitable treatment from their respective soccer federations. Let's start with Zambia. Zambia is qualified for the Olympics, but they could miss playing at the Summer Olympics after FIFA threatened the Football Association of Zambia, called FAZ. They threatened the president there, Andrew Kamanga, because of undue influence by third parties. So let's jump into what
does that even mean?
I know, it is strange. Andrew Kamanga has been the president of FAZ since 2016. He was charged by Zambia's Drug Enforcement Commission for obtaining government funds under false pretenses and being part of conspiracy to defraud. It's been alleged that he's used money to fund trips for 2 associates to the Africa Cup of Nations in the Ivory Coast this past year. So just using money in a way that he should not have been using money. That's not why it's not the charges that got FIFA upset. It's that because of these charges, Zambia's High Court issued an injunction preventing the annual meeting that FAZ has every year. So because that meeting was prevented from happening from a Zambia High Court, FIFA then steps in and says there is an undue influence by a third party. And in FIFA, you can't have undue influences by third parties, even if it's your government. For some reason, that gets FIFA all in a tizzy, and you can be suspended. So it's not the fact that he allegedly did what he did. It's the fact that the government stepped in and said, you can't have this soccer meeting, this football meeting, and therefore you have undue influences. This has happened before. FIFA's law prohibits third-party influence in the running of a member association. So in this case, it would be FAZ, and it has previously suspended nations where governments or courts have been judged to interfere, and it did this with India in August of 2022. If you are suspended, you cannot compete internationally.
So this is something that the team has no control over.
Yep.
It's just the government's coming in, and these women are working their butts off to get where they need to get and to win games and to play and all these things. And then you have people doing things they shouldn't and are ruining that for them.
And this Zambia team is on the rise. They look really good. They qualified for the Olympics. They're placed in Group B with the U.S. women's national team, Germany and Australia for the Olympics. They are also coached by Bruce Muape, and he's also got some stuff going on. He remained under investigation by FIFA after allegations of misconduct before and during the Women's World Cup last year. So he's been accused of rubbing his hands over the chest of his players 2 days before the country's win over Costa Rica. I know. What is happening?
It's just, I have no words for that. Like, it's just, being a woman is very difficult.
It's
in
just
this
a
world.
beatdown. Not only are they are the women on the team worried about what their president is doing and how that may affect what's happening with their Olympic bid, which all these women want to do is just play in the Olympics and get to play for the country that they represent. On top of that, they have a coach who's been
violating them.
Allegedly violating. Well, we'll make sure we don't have to call our lawyers,
okay,
which we don't have any.
It's what we heard.
It ultimately hurts the players the most.
Yeah.
And you have NWSL standouts like Barbara Banda from the Orlando Pride and Rachel Kundananji from Bay FC, who are both expected to play for the Zambian national team, who make huge impacts in the NWSL, who are amazing players. And it's just really unfortunate that not only do they have to worry about performing on the biggest stage, the best that they can, they also have to worry about their coach, and they also have to worry about their president and if they can even play in the Olympics this year.
It's really unfortunate.
Moving on to Spain. So Spain won the World Cup in 2023. They are the favorite for the Olympics. They have also been fighting for better treatment within their federation. So during the World Cup in 2023, they won. During the podium ceremony, Jenny Hermosa, who plays for Spain, was kissed on the mouth by the head of Spain's soccer federation, Luis Rubiales.
And this was on camera, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is not allegedly, by the way. This actually happened.
But he insisted it was consensual.
Oh, okay.
He asked for permission, I'm sure, right before he did it.
He went right up to her.
Can you imagine you being at work and someone just coming up and kissing you on the mouth?
No.
Winning is not enough for women athletes. Instead, the players have to fight their own bosses every day. They have to fight for their dignity. And these are professional athletes we're talking about in their workspace.
Right.
I don't understand. These women from Spain are winning.
And unfortunately, it does happen in the work environment, because if it didn't, we wouldn't have sexual harassment trainings every single year that needs to be watched. So yes, this is relevant, and it could happen in any workplace.
Even before the World Cup, 15 players from Spain asked not to be considered for the national team due to player conditions under the manager at the time, Jorge Vilda. He was not removed from coaching on the team. So they got in a whole new roster and still they continued to win, which is amazing. So less than a week after their World Cup win, Vilda, the manager at the time, was offered a new contract. Rubiales was defiantly not resigning. And then 81 women in the national team pool, along with 2 men's national team players, said they would not play for Spain if Rubiales remained in charge. 81 women plus 2 male players had to say, we're done. We're going to give up our job here in order for change to happen. It's so frustrating that in order for change to happen, people have to protest like this. On top of that, the manager, his entire coaching staff also resigned in protest. He eventually was fired in early September. And then 5 days later, Rubiales resigned, finally. To be able to just get to resign is also, you're not removed, you just resign. Montse Tomé Vasquez is now the coach for the Spain national team. She was an assistant coach on the World Cup team. They are playing in Group C of the Olympics, which consists of Brazil, Japan, Spain, and Nigeria. Let's move on to Nigeria. Nigeria players claim they have received less than half of their daily camp wages and no match bonuses from the Nigerian Football Federation.
So just to be clear, they were told what they're supposed to be paid.
Yep.
But they're actually receiving is half of what they were told.
Yep.
That is ridiculous. Less than half. Okay, good.
And no match bonuses. So they're just not getting paid.
Could you imagine going to work and your next paycheck is less than half what you should be making?
No.
That is insane.
I mean, you're dealing with people's livelihoods.
That's what I was just thinking. Like, how do you live when you're expecting the X amount of money and now you're given less than half of that?
And I really think these federations use the fact that you're playing for your country and the pride and the esteem that comes with playing for your country in order to manipulate. I feel like these federations are in a prime environment to take advantage of people because being on a national team is held in such high esteem. The team is working with FIFPro, the International Players Union, to fight for payments owed to them by this Nigerian Football Federation, some of which date back to 2021.
So this has been ongoing.
And this is also what I want to talk about. It's not just these single things. This is years and years of this happening, of women being treated by the entire system so poorly. For Nigeria, so many of these claims had to be made anonymously because there is this fear of retaliation from the federation that they'll get removed from the team. They'll just pick someone else up who is, again, in a position where they just want to play for their national team. And so it puts all of the players in a really bad position. Some notable players on the Nigerian team who also play in the NWSL, Asistat Oshwala plays for Bay FC and Michelle Alazi plays for the Houston Dash. They also represent Nigeria. As we mentioned, Nigeria is in Group C, which is Brazil, Japan, Spain, and then Nigeria. And then the last team that I want to talk about is Argentina, who is not qualified for the Olympics this year, which I think puts them in a worse position because they're not having these eyes on them now. As the Olympics is going to be playing, this is what the commentators are going to be talking about, right? They're going to be playing in games and then they can say, and Nigeria is still not getting paid. They're still not getting paid what they should, and they're here. It's going to allow them to bring some more attention to it. Unfortunately for Argentina, 4 players, including 3 starters, stepped down from their senior squad ahead of 2 international friendlies, citing poor training conditions and the federation's failure to compensate players.
And that was probably the last thing they wanted to do, to stop playing. But it gets to a point where you have to choose your livelihood and your mental health and well-being over what you love because you're not being treated right.
One of the players, Lorena Benitez, said the team was not given breakfast or lunch during training on 2 separate days.
So go train your butts off, but don't eat. We're not going to feed you.
And was reportedly told there's no money for food. She said players were given ham and cheese sandwiches and a banana at the end of training on those days. The team was also not given their usual stipend because the games they were playing were being played in Buenos Aires, which was done intentionally to limit the expenses for the team. Again, Benitez said that they were told there's no money, and they even charged their families to attend the games. It was a very small fee, but obviously it's not just about the stipends. It's not just about the lunch. This is a long history. One of the players, Julieta Cruz, said, there comes a point when injustices get tiring, when it's tiring not to be valued, not to be listened to, and even worse, to be humiliated. Improvements are needed in Argentine women's soccer team, and I'm not just talking about economics. I just wish that future generations don't go through this and can really enjoy being on the national team. Unfortunately, so often these women have to protest, they have to threaten not to play. They have to win in order to get enough attention. They have to win under these circumstances, like with everything stacked against them, not getting paid, not having food. They have to then win in order to get any attention to say, hey, we deserve to get paid and we deserve to get fed.
Right.
It's also interesting because we've heard before, people in the public will say, I wish these players can just shut up and play, right? And I bet these athletes wish they could just shut up and play.
I'm sure they wish that too.
I bet so many of them wish they could just focus on their wins, focus on their losses, but
not worry about getting paid what they told they were going to get paid.
Exactly. Not worry about getting touched inappropriately by their coach.
Not worry they're going to go starving.
Yes. Not worry that their president of their federation is going to do something illegal with their money that's going to prevent them from ever playing in the Olympics. I bet they wish that that could be true. But there are systems in place that have a long history of making it very difficult for women to be in positions to make money, for women to win, essentially. I think it's important that we have this conversation as we head into the Olympics to know that not only in the U.S. are we continually fighting for better pay equity and have a long history of advocating of the women's national team advocating for themselves for increased equity, but it's happening all around the world. And that the women who show up to play in the Olympics are carrying so much more than their professional history of wins and losses. They are carrying whole generations of women on their back to try to fight for better conditions for themselves.
And the player you mentioned who quoted, like, they're also looking at future generations, and they want them to be able to just play and not worry about all of this stuff. So it's just unfortunate, and women continue to amaze me because they just keep going through all this mess and just try to make it better, and it just shouldn't be that way, but it's unfortunately, that is the truth.
All right, let's move into something a little bit lighter. Let's move into what we are looking forward to this week. Why don't you start us off, Danielle?
Last week, we talked a lot about the Commissioner's Cup, explained what it is. How do you get to the Commissioner's Cup? So if you haven't listened to last week's episode and want to learn more, you can do that.
Can I take a pause there too?
Yes.
I know that we do topical weekly episodes. However, I just started listening to a new podcast and they also do topical weekly episodes. And I went all the way back and started listening from the very beginning. And it is very fun to listen.
I love doing that when I get a new podcast I enjoy.
Yeah. So if you're new to our pod, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. And feel free to jump all the way back in January when we began. It's fun to listen. And I think we've grown quite a bit as podcast
say, you can see the progression.
Yeah. I think our first episode, we didn't have any intro music. Now we have amazing intro music from Melvin Alexander Black. You should give him a follow if you don't. We've come a long way. So sorry. Go ahead on your Commissioner's Cup.
Yes. So the Commissioner's Cup will take place next Tuesday, June 25th. While we will still drop an episode next Tuesday, for those who don't listen on the day we release, wanted to get ahead of it. And just as a reminder, the time for the game has not been announced yet, so just be on the lookout for that. And no, it will be played in New York, in Brooklyn, at the New York Liberty. The Minnesota Lynx has clinched the Western Conference spot, and the New York Liberty has clinched the Eastern Conference spot. So those are the two teams that will be playing.
The New York Liberty just kind of rolled on through and got those 5 wins really quick. The Western Conference was more of a toss-up. There were a lot more wins and losses, but Minnesota Lynx came through. I predicted that it was going to be Seattle Storm, and surprise, surprise, I predicted wrong.
And I definitely thought the Aces were going to be in there. So,
ooh, Aces are having a rough little week.
Patch, yeah. So New York Liberty's record for the game, this tournament type play, the games that go towards the cup, was 5-0. And the Lynx 4-1. The game will be held in New York due to the Liberty having a better record in this tournament type play. So really looking forward to the Commissioner's Cup. And
who's your win?
Can't wait to see Kathy on the big screen.
Oh my gosh. Who's your prediction for who's going to win?
I have to go with the New York Liberty. They did win last year's cup over the Aces, so think they might have some momentum going into this one.
They definitely have the momentum.
The Lynx have been playing great. The head coach of the Lynx, as a reminder, is also the chosen coach for the U.S. national team this year for the Olympics. So obviously, all the coaches know what they're doing. But I'm just saying that team is well coached and that they're obviously going on a good run. I'm just hoping it's a competitive, really good game. But I think I still have to go with New York Liberty as my pick. How about you?
I think Minnesota is a sleeper team that is just very, very good.
Yeah.
I know that I have a really good track record of jinxing teams, so I'm going to say that the New York Liberty are going to win in hopes that maybe it'll go towards the Minnesota Lynx, and we'll see if I have so much power that I jinx every team that I talk about.
I was laughing because the Aces and Liberty just played this past week. Now that the roster is out for the U.S. national team, Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson were hugging before, and Brianna Stewart was like, bonjour. And Asia Wilson was like, oh, bonjour. So I think the team's getting excited for the Paris Olympics, and it's just fun to see players start getting in that mode.
Yes.
But take a look at the Commissioner's Cup next week. And Carolyn, what do you have for us this week as looking ahead?
So Team USA swim trials are continuing to happen this week. From today when we released through Sunday, June 23rd, there are finals every night in different events beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern time on NBC. and Peacock. It's both men's and women's, but they do the men's, then they do the women's, and they flip back and forth to different events. Katie Ledecky, who was on my pick for one of the greatest women athletes from 2000 on, she swims the 200 meter freestyle, 400 meter freestyle, 800 meter freestyle, and 1500 meter freestyle. As of today, she is officially qualified for her 4th Olympic Games. She is just 2 gold medals away from matching the all-time record of Olympic gold medals by a female in any sport.
That's incredible. Swimming in general is just always fascinating to me because on a regular basis, I don't really watch it, but every time the Olympics are on and swimming is on, I fall in love with it every single time. I personally am not a very good swimmer, and I'm just amazed. I did a little tri sprint a few years ago and would have to train my swimming, and I just remember people looking at me in the pool like, is that girl okay? Like, not the best swimmer. So these people are amazing. Katie Ledecky, shout out for 4th Olympic Games. That is amazing. And I'm excited to see her compete.
And I want to tell a little story about you swimming.
No.
So we go down to the Jersey Shore with my family quite often.
People are going to think there's something wrong with me.
No. There's something wrong with my family. And my family on my mom's side is a bunch of really strong matriarchs. Yep. And we go into the ocean and we are in our 30s, but the moms come down to the ocean. The moms who are now grandmas come down to the ocean and they make sure they have they count the number of kids, adult kids and young kids, and make sure that they've got eyes on all the kids. And one year Danielle was in the ocean swimming.
This is so ridiculous. I am an athlete.
And my mom was like, can Danielle swim? She looks like she's struggling out there. I'm going to have to keep an eye on her.
That is so ridiculous and embarrassing.
So now every time Danielle goes in the ocean, she's got a grandma making sure that she is able to stay afloat in that ocean.
I don't have any fancy schmancy little, whatever you call it, strokes. I am a strong doggy paddler and it keeps me afloat.
I think you're doing great.
I'm just getting so pumped for the Olympics in general.
I know. What are we going to do? I'm going to want to do an episode every day.
I know. I'm going to have to settle you down and just say we have a life on top of this. So
on top
can we
of
just
work
enjoy watching these sports and we'll highlight the major things.
Okay.
That is it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports. Rate and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. And thanks for joining us.
See you next Tuesday.